Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the best NL Central team of them all? Oh, oh wait, it's still the Cardinals? Really? Hey guys, I'm Tara Wellman. This is Birdseed's episode lucky number 13. Hopefully it's a lucky week for our number 13 as well. The last week has been interesting in the NL Central because, well, the three best teams in all of baseball play there and play each other a lot this last month. With the Cardinals in Chicago, interesting was code for that was crazy. And it all started with this whole hyped up intensity between two teams that have always been rivals, but the relevancy of that rivalry has been not quite at its peak in the last several years. And yet here we are with the Cubs still believing that they have a chance to win the division late in September. All that meant for the Cardinals was that it was a tough series at Wrigley, which is always the case, but there was a little more intensity behind it this time. Now, I've decided that I'm kind of over the whole Cubs, Cardinals, Joe Madden, who hit who first and who's gonna end. I don't care anymore. But the point remains, tensions are high with both of these clubs right now, and I like what Jason Heyward had to say. There's no talking to be done. Right now, it is all about the play on the field. If you had told me in April that Stephen Piscotty and Tommy Pham would be the stars of September for St. Louis, I would first of all think you were talking about them as September call-ups. I would second of all think that we're probably talking about the Cardinals maybe even missing the playoffs at that point, but none of that is the case. These two have been stars for the Cardinals in the last month, and they're doing it in a way that a lot of other veteran guys haven't been able to do. As of Tuesday, in the last 30 days, Stephen Piscotty is hitting .311, slugging .505, and leads the team with 20 RBI. He seems to be right at the center of just about every big inning the Cardinals have, especially when he can tag team with Tommy Pham. And what about his last 30 days? Well, he's hitting .309, slugging .618, and leads the team with 4 triples to go along with 4 home runs and 12 RBI of his own. The case of Tommy Pham has been an interesting one because, remember, he's 27. Injuries have plagued his career this far and kept him from really having a major league shot until now. And he's taken full advantage of it and even convinced Mike Matheny that, at least for now, he's the man for the job. I loved what Mike said after Monday night's game when asked about the complicated outfield situation with some guys coming back off the DL, and Mike said, Tommy Pham doesn't complicate anything. If he does what he does, he's playing, which said a lot for Tommy Pham, as well as the growth of Mike Matheny in his management abilities, because, let's be honest, he wouldn't have made that call last season. So Tommy Pham has stepped up and made his presence known in a way that no one can ignore. You know what's not complicated? Jason Heyward. Can we just take a minute and appreciate all that Jason Heyward is? I know you're probably thinking, Tara, you've been talking about Jason Heyward all season. What more could you possibly say? Well, there's this and also that. So, you know. Look, I get it. His slash line, probably not going to blow you away. But I also know you can take almost any numbers you want to fit the narrative about Jason Heyward that you like best. I happen to like the guy. So I'm going to talk about the fact that he's been worth 5 wins above replacement this year, which is 15th best in all of baseball. Like defensive stats, his ultimate zone rating is 3rd best in baseball at this point. I get it. He may not be hitting enough home runs for you. Maybe he's not driving in as many runners as you'd like, but he's saving a lot of runs, he's creating runs on the base paths, and he's not been bad at the plate either. I've been Team Heyward from day one, which is kind of weird considering how much I've had a hard time dealing with losing Oscar Taveras, but in that situation, if the idea with Taveras was to get a young right fielder that you could establish in that position for the long term that could be a superstar, isn't that pretty much what you have with Jason Hayward anyway? I mean, come on, Mo, let's get on this. Can we just send some paperwork, he'll sign, you sign, we can all be done with it and move on, okay? The only downside to Hayward's spectacular throw that nailed Rizzo at the plate was it cost Yadier Molina for at least a week or so. Now, that had nothing to do with Jason Hayward, much more to do with, well, Rizzo's slide and the speed of the play. But if you're keeping track, that's now 2 NL Central opponents that have been taken out for at least a short period of time by Cubs' aggressive slide. I'm not saying there's anything to that, I'm just saying, if you're the kind of person that likes to keep track of those things, that's 2. Anyway, with Molina out, Tony Cruz is the guy. Now, there's been a lot of talk this season about the fact that there isn't really an heir apparent to Yadier Molina, like Yadi was to Mike Matheny. But there's so much core belief in Tony Cruz within the system, at least whatever they say out loud, that they don't really seem to think it's important right now. Let's be honest, Yadi wasn't exactly tearing it up at the plate. In the last month or so, he's hitting 194 with only 2 extra base hits. He's started 132 games, so maybe he needs this break anyway. A blessing in disguise of sorts, but the pitching staff has not, statistically, been as good without Yadier Molina in the game. If you look at catcher's ERA, with Yadi in there, it's 2.80. With Tony Cruz in the game, it's 3.62. And then there's just the maturity and the leadership Yadi brings to the field. When you have guys that are wildly emotional, like everyone wants to say about Carlos Martinez, or you just have someone that's hard to catch, like Jaime Garcia is, this is not an easy task that is being given to Tony Cruz to fill in the shoes of Yadier Molina in all of those different capacities. Certainly he's capable of fielding the position, but he doesn't bring the same sense of confidence, offensively, defensively, or from a strategic standpoint, that Molina does. So hopefully this Molina thing isn't really too long lasting and he's capable of getting back out there, especially for the postseason, especially with a bullpen that's kind of in flux right now. One thing is for sure, the back end of that bullpen has been rock solid. I'm looking at you, Trevor Rosenthal. It's funny because after all of the angst about the 2014 season for Trevor Rosenthal and the fact that he would have a hard time duplicating those results based on the high-stress process that he put himself and all of us through last year, Rosie's done his homework. He's put in the effort and made himself a better pitcher and therefore a better closer. He tied the franchise record with 47 saves on Monday night. He has a 1.49 ERA in 65 games and a 78.1% strand rate. So when a rare base runner does reach, well, he's pretty much keeping them there. And that's been the difference for Rosie this season. But let's go back to this saves thing. Much like a pitcher's win, the save stat has arguable merit. Sure, it's great. It tells you a lot about the ability of a guy to come in and shut it down. But what bothers me is how that statistic has begun to define how contracts are written and how players are used in games and when a manager can and can't use his best bullpen pitcher. Take, for example, this last Monday night. That game needed to be saved in the 8th inning, not the 9th. The number of the inning was irrelevant at that point. It was a 1-run game with 2 runners on and nobody out. Do you not want your best bullpen pitcher in the game at that point? Is that not where the save needs to happen? I mean, if you get through that inning, it's the heart of the order. The 9th inning would have been the bottom of the lineup for the Cubs. You could have thrown Broxton there, Cishek, Villanueva, if he ever actually made it to Chicago, still waiting on confirmation of that. Nonetheless, it would have been very outside the box and far too creative, not just for Mike Matheny, but for most managers in baseball right now. There are a few that would do it, but they're so tied to this idea that the closer pitches in the 9th to get that all-important save. But what if the game needs to be saved in the 8th? Whenever Trevor Rosenthal pitches next, the Cardinals will have a chance to drop that magic number. This week, they could drop it all the way down to the point where the Pittsburgh series might only delay the inevitable. But it would be great to see the Cardinals go ahead and clinch not the last day of the season so that, hey, maybe they can see what they have in Adam Wainwright or Matt Holliday or Matt Adams and not feel like they're putting the game at risk to do so. Nonetheless, the Cardinals are playing the Reds and the Brewers this week, which means play like they're the Reds and the Brewers. Okay? We'll see you next time on Birdseeds.